You know, those first few days of a newborn's life, they're just this incredible, rapid-fire period of change and development. But what happens when things don't go quite according to plan, especially when it comes to their brand new digestive system? It can get really scary, really fast for new parents. So today, we're going to break down some of the most critical gastrointestinal conditions, from the problems you can see right away to the dangers that are hidden inside. Here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at problems you can actually see on the outside. Then we'll dive into some serious issues happening on the inside. After that, we are going to unravel the whole puzzle of newborn jaundice, figure out why it happens, and then wrap up with the key things every parent really should know. All right, first up, we're talking about conditions where the problem is, well, it's right there in plain sight. These are called abdominal wall defects. So what does that mean in simple terms? It just means there's an opening, a hole in the baby's abdominal wall, and stuff that should be on the inside is bulging out. But as you're about to see, the severity of this can vary a lot. A really common one is an umbilical hernia. You've probably heard it called an outie belly button. If you look at the diagram, you can see exactly what's going on. A little piece of the intestine is just pushing through a weak spot in the muscle right where the umbilical cord was. But here's the crucial part. It's all still covered by skin. And here's the good news. Most of the time, umbilical hernias are totally harmless. They happen because that little ring of muscle doesn't quite close up after birth. And guess what? The vast majority close up all on their own in a year or two. Surgery is really a last resort, something doctors only think about if it starts getting bigger, causing pain, or if it's still hanging around after the kid turns 4. Okay, I have to talk about this. You might have heard about this old home remedy, taping a coin or something over the hernia to push it in. Please do not do this. It just doesn't work, and it can actually lead to a nasty skin irritation or even an infection. Seriously, the best thing you can do is just leave it alone. So while an umbilical hernia is usually nothing to lose sleep over, there are a couple of other abdominal wall defects that are the exact opposite. They are immediate surgical emergencies. And this image does a fantastic job of showing the two big ones, Gastroschisis on the left and Omphalocele on the right. Now look really closely. Can you spot the single biggest difference between them? With an Omphalocele, the organs are all tucked inside this protective little bag, this membrane. But with gastroschisis, they're completely out in the open. This table really lays out the differences perfectly. First, the location's different. An omphalocele is right at the belly button, while gastroschisis is usually just off to the right. But honestly, the two most critical things to know are the sac, which is always there in an omphalocele and never in gastroschisis, and the fact that omphaloceles are often linked with other major problems like heart defects. Gastroschisis, on the other hand, rarely is. Okay, so we've covered the problems we can see right on the surface. But now, let's talk about the trouble brewing on the inside, where the signs can be way harder to spot, but are just as dangerous, if not more so. This is a condition called necrotizing enterocolitis, or NEC for short, and it is absolutely devastating. It's an intestinal disease where the bowel tissue literally starts to die. It's one of the most serious emergencies a newborn could ever face. The single biggest risk factor here is being born too early, prematurity. And the warning signs can be really subtle. Things like the baby being extra tired, having pauses in their breathing, or seeing blood in their stool. Treatment has to be immediate. I mean, everything stops. No more feeds to give the gut a rest. They start powerful antibiotics, and very often surgery is needed to go in and remove the parts of the intestine that have been damaged. So how do doctors know for sure that it's NEC? Well, they look at an X-ray like this one. This shows the classic telltale sign. Do you see those dark, bubbly-looking lines the arrows are pointing to? That's air that has gotten trapped inside the wall of the intestine itself. It's a condition called pneumatosis intestinalis. Seeing that on an X-ray is pretty much a confirmation. And there's another serious internal issue we need to mention, called imperforate anus. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The anal opening is either blocked or it's just not there. The number one sign is a newborn that hasn't passed their first stool, which is called meconium, within the first day or two. This is another surgical emergency that needs to be fixed right away so that stool has a way to get out. All right, let's switch gears and talk about something incredibly common, newborn jaundice. I bet almost every parent out there has seen it, but there's a whole lot more to that yellowish tint than you might think. So jaundice is really just the visible sign, that yellow color you see in the skin and in the whites of the eyes. And it's caused by high levels of a substance in the blood called bilirubin. But the million-dollar question is always this: is this just normal newborn stuff, or is it a sign that something's wrong? This right here is the most important distinction we can make. On one hand, you have physiologic jaundice. That's the normal, expected kind. It usually shows up on day 2 or 3, gets a little worse, and then it's gone within about a week. But on the other hand, you have pathologic jaundice, and that's a huge red flag. It can pop up in the first 24 hours of life, the bilirubin levels shoot up way faster, and it tells doctors that there's some other medical problem they need to hunt down. So why? Why do so many babies get jaundiced in the first place? Well, to get that, we need to take a quick look at how the body handles this bilirubin stuff. Okay, let's follow the journey. Right after birth, newborns start breaking down a ton of old red blood cells they don't need anymore. A yellow substance called bilirubin is left over from that process. This bilirubin then travels to the liver, which is supposed to act like a little processing plant. The liver's job is to change the bilirubin into a form that can be cleared out of the body in the baby's poop. The problem is, a newborn's liver is still pretty new at its job and can get overwhelmed super easily, which causes that bilirubin to back up and build up in the blood. Now, stick with me, because not all bilirubin is the same. Before it gets processed by the liver, it's in a form we call unconjugated. This type is fat-soluble, which is a big deal because it means it can cross from the blood into the brain and become toxic if the levels get too high. But after the liver does its job, it becomes conjugated. This type is water-soluble, and the body can get rid of it easily. So you can see why it's all about managing that first, unconjugated type. And this quote says it all. This is exactly why we take jaundice so seriously. If that unconjugated bilirubin level spikes and gets dangerously high, it can cause a type of brain damage called kernicterus, which can have just devastating lifelong consequences. So what kinds of things cause that dangerous, pathologic jaundice? Well, one very serious cause is a condition called biliary atresia. If you look at the diagram on the right, you can see the problem loud and clear. The bile ducts, which are like these tiny pipes that drain bile from the liver, are blocked or maybe even missing entirely. This creates a dangerous traffic jam, a backup of bilirubin right inside the liver. And this brings us right back to what parents can actually see. So how would you know something this serious is going on? Well, the key signs of this dangerous blockage are jaundice that sticks around for more than 2 weeks, baby poops that are pale or almost clay-colored. That's because the bilirubin isn't getting into the intestines to give it that normal color, and really dark urine as the body desperately tries to get rid of all that extra bilirubin through the kidneys instead. Okay, we have covered a ton of complex information. So let's just boil it all down. What are the most important things you need to walk away with? Here's the bottom line. First, those obvious physical signs, they really matter. Knowing the difference between a simple hernia and organs that are actually exposed is vital. But you also have to remember that some of the most life-threatening signs are super subtle. A change in your baby's energy level or the color of their stool and urine. Your observations as a parent are an incredibly powerful tool. And for every single one of these conditions, catching it early and getting medical help right away, that is the absolute key to a good outcome. It really just leaves you with this one thought, doesn't it? In those incredibly fragile first moments of life, when a brand new baby can't tell us what's wrong, it becomes crystal clear that knowledge, just knowing what to look for and when to raise the alarm, is our single greatest tool for protecting them.